Since its founding, the United States has fought 11 major wars. The War of 1812 is the most obscure. Scholars have devoted much effort to studying this war that began on June 18, 1812, and lasted until February 17, 1815. Yet most Americans only have a vague idea of who we fought, and more importantly, why we fought them. Those who do have some knowledge of the conflict are likely to remember only a few dramatic events, such as the USS Constitution's naval victory over the HMS Guerrière, Francis Scott Key's The Star-Spangled Banner, and Andrew Jackson's victory at the Battle of New Orleans. Conversely, Americans are less familiar with the events that led to this war. The Jay Treaty of 1794, the 1807 Leopard-Chesapeake affair, and the Henry Papers, discovered on the eve of the war. Hi, I'm Tom Army. Welcome to another thought-provoking edition of United States History Online. This episode, entitled The Young Republic's Growing Pains, is part one of a 5-part series on the history of our young republic and the causes of the War of 1812. In the years immediately after the signing of the Treaty of Paris, which successfully ended the American Revolution, our ancestors struggled to establish an effective government, build a strong economy, and create the security necessary to prevent further threatening overtures from the hated British and the miscreant French. The framers agreed on the political, economic, and security issues confronting us in the final 2 decades of the 18th century. However, they passionately disagreed on the best steps required to address them. This disagreement gave birth to the first party system in the United States. Contrary to a common impression that our early republic stood on sure footings, the guaranteed long-term success of our remarkable experiment in democratic republicanism was uncertain. For the United States, the War of 1812 represented a daunting hurdle in America's development as a stable nation. Therefore, the study of the early republic and the causes of the War of 1812 are worthy of our attention. Many Americans believe that the impressment of American sailors triggered the war. Great Britain's brazen violation of our neutrality rights challenged American honor as a young nation, and we were prepared to fight the foremost empire on the planet to defend our honor. Impressment was the British Royal Navy's practice of boarding American merchant ships and forcibly seizing seamen to serve in the British Navy. Great Britain argued that these sailors were deserters from the Royal Navy, but Americans saw it as nothing but an action of cruel and random abduction. Between 1803 and 1812, press gangs, as historians call these abductions, took an estimated 6,000 to 9,000 Americans into servitude. Impressment was an issue, but additional causes of the war were many and more complex. Some historians have argued that the primary cause of the war lay in upholding national honor in the face of the British government's orders in council. Illegal impressment and violations of American free trade. Other scholars suggested that British influence over Native Americans in the lands west of the Appalachian Mountains blocked American expansion and left the young republic with deep-seated fears that Britain was squeezing the United States between the Great Lakes, Canada, and the Atlantic Ocean. Angry and embarrassed about relinquishing the colonies in 1783, Great Britain seemingly sought to extract its pound of flesh. For American national security and prosperity, the United States needed to annex Canada. The annexation of Canada was not a random idea. In 1781, when the Articles of Confederation were adopted, Article 11 stated, quote, "Canada, acceding to this confederation and adjoining in the measures of the United States, shall be admitted into this union," end quote. Jefferson said about the War of 1812 that the cession of Canada must be a sine qua non at a treaty of peace. Still, other historians have maintained political motives for the war. The bitter rivalry between Hamiltonian Federalists and Jeffersonian Republicans led to a bitter debate over the meaning and purpose of the American Revolution. The hostility between the early political factions in the United States metastasized throughout the body politic. Three things caused this. One, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson's divergent visions of post-revolutionary America. Two, a long series of Anglo-French wars from 1793 to 1815. And three, the development of party newspapers. These newspapers aggressively attacked opposing politicians using noxious lies and innuendos. The causes of the War of 1812 spanned the terms of four presidents: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, and Madison. Each man attempted to do his best for the young republic. However, political tensions, developing ideologies, and expanding European conflicts made it increasingly challenging for successive presidents to manage and control external events. Thus, the United States moved steadily closer to war in 1812. 48 days after George Washington's inauguration as the first president of the United States, the formation of the French National Assembly marked the beginning of the French Revolution. At first, most Americans supported the French Revolution. Seemingly, our revolution spread to Europe as the French people prepared to rid themselves of a monarchy along with the aristocratic system that supported it. Back home, George Washington's administration was facing challenging economic issues. Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, confronted fragmented commercial and revenue systems, inadequate currency, and a daunting foreign and domestic debt. As a strong proponent of economic nationalism, he believed it essential to revive confidence in public credit at home and abroad. He wanted a sound currency, robust manufacturing integrated with agriculture, revival of foreign trade, and the establishment of a stalwart national bank. He proposed, 1, the national government would assume state debts contracted during the Revolution amounting to $22 million. 2, impose tariffs on wines, spirits, coffee, and teas, plus an excise tax on domestically distilled spirits. 3, the national government would redeem at face value the $55 million in Confederation securities held by foreign and domestic investors. Hamilton rationalized that an underdeveloped nation needed good credit to secure loans from Dutch and British financiers. 4, the national government would provide investors with new interest-bearing securities, thus creating a permanent national debt. 5, the Congress would establish a National Bank of the United States, which private stockholders and the national government would jointly own. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison strongly opposed Hamilton's plan for 3 reasons. First, Jefferson doubted that wage workers had the economic and political independence necessary to sustain a Republican polity. His vision of the United States was that of a society of independent yeoman farmers. He wrote, quote, "Those who labor in the earth are the chosen people of God," end quote. Second, Jefferson believed that Hamilton's plan moved the country towards a despised British model. And 3, the bank was an unconstitutional measure. For Jefferson, this was another example of Hamilton's attempt to increase executive authority and even take the country a step closer to a monarchy. Now, in Federalist Paper 67, Hamilton made clear he had no intention of supporting a monarchy. As Hamilton and Jefferson grew ideologically apart, Washington watched this clash with alarm. He detested dissenting factions within a political organization. The situation demanded the president make difficult choices. When Jefferson argued that the new Constitution did not expressly state that Congress could create a bank, a strict interpretation of the Constitution, Hamilton argued for a loose interpretation. He told Washington that Article 1, Section 8 empowered Congress to make, quote, "all laws which shall be necessary and proper to carry out the provisions of the Constitution," end quote. Washington agreed with Hamilton and signed the bank bill into law. Washington called Jefferson and Madison to breakfast shortly after he ended the bank issue. After the meal, the president reminded Jefferson that men could disagree and remain civil. Washington said, "I will frankly and solemnly declare that I believe the views of both of you are pure and well meant." Well, within 2 years, that civility would disappear.